LK Tuesday class and MSP LK Wednesday class. This is going to be a permanent link. So you can see this link. So still people are joining. Huh? So shall we start? Just 1 minute. Huh? So I was just discussing about the two articles that I have sent. So one is on what is profit, and another is on how to get rich. So how is the both the articles?
Good, sir.
They are very interesting, sir.
Exactly, sir. Interesting.
See, you can understand what we mean by genuine profit. That means a profit which elevates everybody in the society. It benefits everybody. Any profit made out of this strategy. So, for example, I was giving the example of Henry Ford. So, by coming with a very novel production system to improve the assembly of a car. See, he has reduced the assembly time of a car from 12 hours per car to just 90 minutes. So that has resulted in tremendous increase in the productivity. And what happened? What is the repercussion of it? Now, he over a period of time, he reduced the price of the car from $60 to $280. He paid one of the highest hourly wage rates to the workers, and he became a billionaire in his own lifetime. So that means his profits, whatever he has become rich, not at the cost of somebody's efforts. He has become rich out of his own innovation. And in the process, he not only saved the time for the farmers, average farmer in America, he increased the wages of the workers. And whatever the beauty of moving assembly line, the beauty of moving assembly line is that the beauty of the moving assembly line is that he made everyone as a rich. Okay. Similarly, in the hero of the story of what is profit, by exploiting the hill stream, he could give power to all the people, and at the same time, for his creativeness, he is charging something. So, in a way, he has saved 90 minutes for every citizen in his village, and then only 10 minutes he has asked their efforts to for his personal use. And simultaneously, he has saved 90 minutes for the every individual because they need not go up the hill to get the water. Similarly, like if you read the article of Jared Diamond, How to Get Rich, it is very informative. In fact, most of the points that are discussed in How to Get Rich, we come across in our evolution of industry. Say, for example, like you, as I said, na, when we talk about evolution of industry, modern industry, unfortunately, India doesn't have any systematic evolution of industry. We jump started. We jump started in the sense that Britishers have come and then they rule for some time and then they start bringing in all the technologies like locomotives, laid the railway tracks, all the modern kind of. And then Jamshedji has started his steel industry by taking the technologies from Britain. So that Jamshedpur, Tisco, Telco, all these are we got it from directly from UK or Germany, whatever. What I mean to say is like there is no systematic evolution of industry in India. Partly this is because that is addressed in the article of Jared Diamond. Say he gives the example of too much compartmentalization or too much integration will not help us. For example, he gives the entire China is so big, it is ruled by a single emperor, which is 3 times the size of India. Finally, one cracky king, he suddenly took the decision of abolishing the sea journeys. So one and within 100 years, the entire ship building skills of China vanished. Similarly, two small counties like in India, 500 small counties were princely states were there. So two small counties will not give economies of scale. Similarly, like you take how isolation brings in degradation of societies. Like for example, Tasmania or Japan. So anyway, you give one more reading of those two articles so that you can get the perspective. All right. So anyway, now let us move on to our what do you call formal lecture. So here, let me share my PPT. So what we do here is that if you take evolution of industry, here we are discussing about evolution of industry, what happened in Europe, because the industrial revolution has happened in Europe only. And later, the third era, modern period of mass production, has happened mostly in US. So in prior to industrial revolution, what is the situation in Europe? So as I said, no, like in broadly, we can divide the entire evolution of industry into 3 eras. One is this 11th to 17th century. Then we have 18th to 19th century is industrial revolution era, and then we have the 20th century modern period of mass production, right? So these are the 3 eras with which the modern industry history can be classified. So if you look at this classification or this eras, how it is based on certain characteristics of that particular period. Like if you take medieval era, what are the characteristics of this particular era? It consists of self-sufficient families. That means there is no division of labor at the society level. That means self-sufficient families means they used to weave their own clothes. They used to build their own houses, right? So it is a self-sufficient family. And then we have what you call like it is also period of water wheels, right? Uh, that means the prime movers are based on simple water wheels or like that, like they used to exploit the river. So uh, there are no concept of like dams or concrete. Was invented much later, and then it is also period of superstitions. So there is a lot of uncertainty in life. So uh, measles, cholera used to be rampant. Sometimes almost 90% of every village used to get washed out. See, in fact, like we are much, much better. See, COVID could not create any major havoc. Like if you take the 1918 Spanish flu, out of 30 crores of Indians, it seems 3 crores have died. Almost 10% of the population died. Whereas it is much more worse during this medieval era. 90% of the population used to get washed out. Like if a cholera comes or measles, black, they call, see that due to rats, what it is called? It is plague. Yes, plague. If a plague used to come, then the entire 90% of the population used to get washed out. Yeah. So naturally, whenever there is a lot of uncertainty in life, you tend to believe in a lot of superstitions, thinking that somebody is writing your ghost story. God has punished somebody because they have committed some sins. All that crap comes into picture whenever there is a. So it is a period of superstitions. So here and then it is like the industry, how you are working for him. So he used to have his guild. That means guilds are nothing but an informal group sitting at a place and doing certain artworks. Like for example, in those days, what is the most commercial FMCG, fast moving consumer goods is making swords, making guns, correct? Like primitive guns, not sophisticated guns. Like making swords, making horse buggies, simple products, or making plows for the farmers. So all these are some artifacts, decorative items. So these guilds, they have a like all the artisans used to come. It is a society, you can say guilds means. All the artisans used to sit at a place and then produce some goods which are maybe useful for the public. It may be making hammers or chisels, simple tools. All right, because steam engine was not invented at that moment of time. And then coming to the structure of the society, there are only two levels. There are only two levels in the society, that is peasants and feudals. So that means like there are only two levels in the society. Probably king may be there, but feudals are the local landlords under whom peasants used to work. So there is no the so-called middle class. So here we have now in the modern society in India or America, you have poor people, then lower middle class, upper middle class, and then millionaires and billionaires. We have so many levels in society. But in those days, there are only two levels, peasants and feudals. And these feudals are at the mercy of the feudal, the local landlord. And then, since there is a lot of uncertainty, like people used to believe in fate, saying that like God has created them for It is like that, and they used to feel that they can't dream of even becoming feudal of their place. If you are born as a peasant family, you will die as a peasant, and so they don't have any illusions of growing up in this society, right? So here there are no belief, right? So they believed in fate, and then at the fag end of the uh, probably printing press was invented in 1495 by um, John Gutenberg. So this this particular this is the major invention of this particular era. Why? Because why we say like this is the most important, one of the most important inventions of mankind, this printing press. Why? Because the next, because it has brought in a lot of changes in the society. It has affected our religions. It has affected our scientific progress. Right? So it has enabled us to understand science properly. It has given much impetus to inventions. So what happened is, for example, why we say that printing press is a major invention is because with the printing press, the affordability to own information has become cheaper. See, in those days in Europe, not everyone has affordability to own a copy of the Bible. So what happened? Only rich feudals used to own the copy of a Bible, and people are at the mercy of the feudals to in the interpretation of the Bible. And the interpretation of the Bible always used to be one-sided. So what happened? There was a lot of expansion. See, whenever there is an there is there is no symmetry. Like whenever there is a inappropriate sharing of information, the fellow who has a lot of information, he will tend to exploit the because in those days to have to own a copy of Bible, because there are no printing presses, you have to literally ask a particular person to sit at a table to literally copy one to copy a Bible from with one more copy. So that took almost a year. And that fellow, if you have to own a Bible, then it is too costly for a common man like peasant to own a copy of the Bible. So that led to what happened? Wrong interpretation of the Bible, and then it led to exploitation of the peasants further. So, but with the invention of the printing press by John Gutenberg, immediately there was widespread availability of the Bible. So that led people started. In fact, there was an incentive for every peasant to start being literate, at least to understand what is there in the Bible. So there was till that time only feudals used to have are literate. Around 99% of the population are illiterate, and only 1%. But now, with the invention of the printing press, it created a lot of incentive for people to share information, to read, write, to write articles, to publish, you know, the whole revolution. That's why most of the major inventions that happened in our human history happened only after 1500. There is a systematic. Somebody said, somebody, what is it? Not able to see. Yeah, yeah. somebody has messaged, what is it? Sir, was printing press invention made a business or given to someone for a greater purpose? No, actually, it has benefited to the society. It should. The invention of printing press is, in a way, like it has, like John Gutenberg. Maybe he has done it for a profit, and he was inventing it, but that has indirectly helped the not only the he made information affordable, availability of information affordable, but it led to spread of knowledge like anything, exchanging ideas.
Win-win situation.
Huh?
It's a win-win situation for both sides.
So it is actually, it has created a lot of win-win situation. I was telling you, no, this has affected religion, it has affected science, it has affected the progress of societies itself. Because now people are able to exchange, like whatever the Principia Mathematica written by Newton, it is simultaneously available in English and Latin and Greek. You know, people are able to, like Leibniz invented calculus, so he exchanged that idea with Newton. Anyway, there was a controversy between Newton and Leibniz regarding invention of calculus. But what I mean to say is, this is what I say. This printing press has created a win-win situation. No, see, nowadays, the beauty of patent is you have to disclose the technology, but you have to register. Once you register your invention, then there is no need for what you call hiding. See, the beauty of patent is it brings in transparency in the invention process. See, for example, we didn't have patent system in India. What happened? We used to uh, like people used to keep that secret for themselves or within the family. That's why some of the most beautiful inventions made by India, they were not available to across the entire society. Like for example, the fellow who invented a very beautiful iron, which was rust proof, which is now there in the Qutub Minar. That fellow didn't, because there was no patenting system, na? He didn't told anybody like how he made that rust proof iron. Had it he has given that, it would have saved a lot of billions of rupees and dollars for everybody. Whereas European patent system has brought in transparency in the patenting system. So that means you have to disclose the technology, but if somebody tries to use that technology without permission, that fellow will be taken for task. Are you getting the point? So there is a difference. Once if you have patent, that means you are telling publicly that this is the technology I have invented. If somebody wants to use my technology, you pay some royalty, or you pay some license fee. Okay? See, they have, see, you see our people, like there are so many things to do here. If iron doesn't rust, then people have other business to do. They can invent computers, they can do a lot of other things. They can invent textiles, right? So, uh, just because to do business, you can't make iron rust, right? If there is a way to prevent rusting, you have to do it now. Okay, you have to make product durable. Okay, so so anyway, now let us move on to the industrial revolution era. That is so in this industrial revolution era, like it belongs to 18th and the 19th century. So here the invention of mother machine has happened, lathe. And with this, what happened? This enabled us. So who is the inventor of lathe, modern lathe? Any guessing? Huh? Have you studied lathe or not? Come on, boys. So at least tell me who is the inventor of steam engine?
James Watt.
What about mother machine, lathe? So anyway, like there are different persons are involved here. One of the most popular person who increased the at a level of public consumption, reliability in the machine lathe was Henry Maudslay. So Henry Maudslay is given the credit of like he is the guy who invented a lathe which has the necessary precision to produce a steam engine, right? So you can go through the life history of Maudslay because he ended up inventing so many new things. Okay, so after the invention of modern machine that is laid by Henry Maudslay, the subsequent inventions have come up like steam engine, then introduction of patent system. This is what I said. So patent system is one of the revolutionary thing, right? Because this has brought in a lot of transparency in the invention process. So unless you disclose the idea, you can't make your patent, your invention registered. And at the same time, the state is acting on your behalf to preserve your contribution to the society, like enabling you to exploit your invention in the public domain by ensuring that nobody copies your invention. Suppose if you have developed a drug, right, to treat certain disease, immediately the pharmaceutical company they will patent it so that no other competitor try to copy it and then exploit it, right? So this patent system is in one way has helped companies. Like for example, now because of US Supreme Court decision, people say like anything under the sun can be patented. So you may patent everything, right from software code to simple devices. So even certain simple devices like you can patent it. So this introduction of patent system was first done in UK, I think in 1776 somewhere see long back. Whereas in India, we were very late with respect to patent system. We introduced only as recently as in 1990. So we are almost 200 years behind because we always, even now also, we don't respect patents. We try to copy. Like for example, if A.R. Rahman makes some good song, nobody tries to buy a copyrighted song. People will just download some pirated one and then start listening it. Or similarly, MS Windows. You know, we don't have that kind of ethical practice that if somebody does something, you have to, if you want to use it, you have to pay some royalty or copyright fee to use it. But this concept has come way back in 1776 in UK, and that's why James Watt could easily patent his invention, steam engine. Similarly, Henry Maudslay, all these people, they have patented their inventions. Like Bessemer, Henry Bessemer, who invented the Bessemer process, he could patent it. And then this is also one of the features of this industrial revolution era is now people have changed their philosophy of, like, instead of being like slowly, what do we call, the society, you see that there is a birth of middle class. So in those days, this middle class used to be called as bourgeois or bourgeois. Like, say, these bourgeois class, they are traders. Inherently, they are traders. And here, instead of society being family oriented, now it has changed it to a feature of cult of individualism. That means the philosophy has changed, saying that if one has to go up in life, he has to cease selfish well-being, right? Sometimes even at the cost of his family's trust. So this cult of individualism started growing up in this particular era. Like, this cult of individualism is reflected in the form of people trying to invent and becoming rich, and then people trying to set up industry and then becoming, like, so slowly people are coming out of that fate of the in the fate. So that is another development of this period. So whereas the basic unit of society in the medieval era was family, but now it has gone to the cult of individualism. And then, you see the birth of ugly towns. Why we said ugly towns is because the sanitary kind of thing, and then pollutions, lot of smoke used to come. In those days, for everything, people started using steam engine, and this steam engine used to produce lot of smoke, black smoke, and it used to pollute the towns. And there is also division of labor at the society level. That means you start seeing certain professions like plumber, carpentry, weavers. Whereas in the medieval era, every family used to be self-sufficient family. But now you see the division of labor at the society level, where certain professions like doctors, lawyers, there is a division of labor. Like, there is a complex hierarchy. So you see that all these things coming up in this industrial revolution era. And then we have this division of labor. Some good, beautiful, this concepts, like in particularly these three. These three, particularly division of labor, concept of interchangeability, and standardization. These are some of the breakthrough concepts which helped in manufacturing, particularly manufacturing. These are the important things, because this division of labor was put forward by Adam Smith, the father of economics. So in fact, he's a very, very wise man. So, in fact, I have quoted his quotation. What is the quotation? What is the quotation by Adam Smith? Any guessing?
Sir, it goes like something that every man is driven by his own selfishness.
Yes.
It is not from the benevolence of the butcher or something like that.
Yes. So Adam Smith is a very wise man. He said like selfishness is the driving force of an economy. No amount of moralizing people will help. And selfishness of an individual will ultimately result in the prosperity of the whole society itself. So that's why he has come with that famous quote. It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that you expect your daily dinner, but it is from the regard to their own self. So there is an accompanying quotation for that. That accompanying quotation is, he says, he is led by an invisible hand towards an end which is part of his end. It seems every businessman is led by an invisible hand towards an end which is not part of his end. That means that is societal upliftment, society richness, building richness in the society. No businessman will think that he is helping the society. He is more interested in profit. In his anxiety to make more profit, he tries to improve the production process. He makes himself very productive and tries to make his industry as profitable as possible through innovation. Just like Henry Ford. He ended up inventing a moving assembly line concept to reduce the total assembly time of car from 12 hours to just 90 minutes. He innovated a lot of technologies. Like he invented a mechanism called Geneva wheel for automatic indexing. So, like so many things he has done. So similarly, what Adam Smith, apart from giving ideas like what drives the society, he also is more known for popularizing, actually. You can say division of labor was there. People understood it, but it is not as clearly as Adam Smith. So prior to also people were using bit of division of labor at the society level. But he said like in manufacturing, this is very important concept. So he said like you use division of labor in the production of products, you can increase the productivity. Say to substantiate his idea, he gave the example of pin manufacturing. Prior to Adam Smith, pin is any pin like you can take simple pin. So any ordinary pin, you have what you find at one end you have head and another at sharp. Simple pin manufacturing. Prior to Adam Smith, every worker used to take a raw wire, cut it standard length, and then used to make head and at one end and sharpen the pin at the other end. Adam Smith, after observing this production process, he said like this is a very inefficient way of doing things. He said instead of only one guy doing all the operations, divide the work. So he said like one worker, you take 3 workers, one worker will do only cutting operation, another fellow will do head making, and another third fellow will do sharpening of the pin. When he suggested this idea, people said like, what is so great? Because you end up employing more people. But ultimately they have found that ultimately what these 3 people actually can do with this idea, they could multiply the output. Then the people started, they started using this division of labor, like they started using for other products, right? So either like in the making of what do you call swords, other hammers, like they used to divide the tasks, and a worker is assigned for each those tasks. And anyway, like they used to do that. Similarly, another breakthrough concept which helped mechanical engineering is the concept of interchangeability by Eli Whitney. So you know Eli Whitney, like um, so he is the guy. I was telling about this man. Incidentally, he's also inventor of cotton ginning machine. You know, cotton ginning machine. Its purpose is to remove seeds from raw cotton. Actually, here also, with the invention of Eli Whitney's cotton ginning machine, it has changed the course of American history. Why? Because there was a lot of demand for slave labor, particularly in the harvesting of cotton. The entire south of United States, it is a very what do you call a place where a lot of slave trade used to happen, because they need a lot of people to separate seeds, cotton seeds from raw cotton. It is a very labor intensive process. But what happened with the invention of Eli Whitney's cotton ginning machine? Suddenly, what a worker you used to feel, say 50 kgs per day to generate process a cotton. Now with the Eli Whitney's cotton ginning machine, within an hour, they used to, each worker within an hour used to produce 50 kgs of cotton, fresh cotton without seeds. So what happened? This has created a lot of labor surplusness. And suddenly people have found to maintain so much slave labor within their control is waste of time and money. So they started freeing the slave labor. You go whatever you are no more a slave. In that way, sometimes technical inventions can lead to changes in the society format itself. Right? So in fact, like one of the reasons why Abraham Lincoln's efforts to change the society perception about the society, about slaves is, by that time Abraham Lincoln came with the idea of freeing the slaves. Already people doesn't have that necessity to maintain the slaves, because that is partly because of Eli Whitney. But only problem with Eli Whitney was he didn't get single dollar out of his invention of cotton ginning, even though he has patented it. The problem is because no one respected his invention in the form of paying some royalty to Eli Whitney. So Eli Whitney ended up being a very frustrated guy. So what he did now? So he was just wondering what to do, because out of his invention he didn't get a single dollar. But fortunately, what happened is there was an advertisement from US Congress in 1798 saying that we need 10,000 muskets for the US Army. And the time given was 3 years. That means by 1801, those 10,000 muskets should be delivered. But what happened? nobody has come forward to take that contract. But Eli Whitney, he has, because he is now a frustrated guy. He wants to make money, so he accepted the contract to produce. While taking the contract, he has some idea. That idea was, I will divide the work of making a gun by coming with special purpose machines, like one special purpose machine for producing only triggers, another for barrel, another for bonnet, another for some other part. Once I make special purpose machines only for producing a single part, then I will assemble them by standardizing, first of all, standardizing their dimensions, and then I will assemble them. So what happened? He started doing it. By the time he started trying to assemble these parts, they were not fitting to each other. So even though he standardized the dimensions, finally he has realized no matter what kind of care he is taking, during the assembly, they were not fitting to each other. So it took a lot of time. He took another 5 years to solve the problem, and he finally found the reason why they are not fitting to each other is, if he realized that no matter how much care you take, you cannot produce a given standard dimension exactly. Either you overshoot or undershoot. So that means Eli Whitney is the guy who introduced the concept of tolerance. That means you have to give some elements. So you can control the variation within a certain range. That he called it as tolerance. So with the introduction of tolerance concept, he could he could come up with concept of interchangeability. Now he used his concept on a daily basis without understanding that it was Eli Whitney's idea. See, if your tube light fuses, what you are doing is you are going to outside and then buy another tube light, right? And it exactly fits. And you are able to accommodate that minute variations in the form of accommodating by introducing the concept of tolerance band. So what happened? Finally, Eli Whitney supplied the entire consignment of 10,000 muskets in 1808. It almost took 10 years. Meanwhile, there was a lot of reminders from US Congress, where is your 10,000 muskets? But at the end, he has done in a very, Eli Whitney has that public, he's a publicity, he did a kind of publicity stunt. In the end, what he did is, he took, he went to US Congress, he poured triggers at one place, barrels at one place, and then bonnets at some other place. And he randomly called US congressmen to pick randomly from all these heaps, one part each. And before they rise, he assembled the musket or gun. The US congressman, people thought he is performing some magic, because the earlier concept of making musket is a single worker used to make the entire gun, and the way he used to put the parts is through trial and error. He used to use ordinary file if there is a out of roundness. So when Eli Whitney has demonstrated that, people thought he's performing magic. But anyway, this has in a way, like our later people started using this concept of interchangeability for every other product, like making steam engines or making lathes, or under certainly Henry Maudslay's precision lathe is also one of the contributors for making this concept of interchangeability as a practice. they are able to introduce, implement it. Anyway, we will, what we will do is, because I think we are 12:35, so we will come back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And I hope like tomorrow everyone has received the link. So I'm going to take Tuesday and Wednesday through WebEx. Okay, so any questions from at this stage before I exit? Any clarifications?